Tucked away in the most remote corners of the American landscape are towns that defy expectation and ignite the imagination. From a village accessible only by boat or plane to a mining town frozen in time, we're counting down 10 mountain towns you truly have to see to believe. Prepare to be amazed by places that feel more like movie sets than real-life American communities. Our journey begins in the absolute wilderness of Alaska with Whittier. This is not just a remote town, it's a town contained almost entirely within a single building. The majority of Whittier's residents live in the 14-story Begich Towers, a former military barracks. Why this bizarre arrangement? Because Whittier is plagued by some of the most extreme weather in North America, with an average of 250 inches of rain and 20 feet of snow annually. Living in a single complex means kids can get to school, residents can get to the grocery store, and everyone can access the medical clinic without ever having to brave the brutal elements outside. The town is accessed via a single, spooky, 2.5-mile railroad tunnel that it shares with the Alaska Railroad, opening for traffic in alternating directions. It's a surreal, self-contained universe at the edge of a pristine fjord. Next, we travel to the loneliest town in America, Monarch, Montana. To call Monarch remote is a profound understatement. It's a census-designated place with a population that hovers around 24 people, nestled deep in the Little Belt Mountains. There are no stores, no gas stations, and no cell phone service. The nearest grocery store is an hour's drive away. What you will find are a handful of residents who cherish their solitude, breathtaking views of the Belt Creek Valley, and access to some of the most untouched wilderness in the lower 48. Life here is about self-reliance and a deep, abiding connection to the natural world, completely disconnected from the frantic pace of modern life. For a taste of the Old West that feels utterly authentic, we head to Silver City, New Mexico. This isn't a reconstructed ghost town, it's a living, breathing relic perched at 6,000 feet in the Pinos Altos Mountains. Founded in 1870 after the discovery of silver, the town boomed and then narrowly avoided becoming a ghost town. Today, about 800 people call it home, preserving over 200 historic buildings that look frozen in the 19th century. The streets are mostly dirt. Wooden boardwalks line the fronts of saloons and general stores, and many buildings are said to be haunted. It's a place where you can sip a drink in a bar that once hosted Billy the Kid and feel the weight of history all around you. In the heart of the Great Smoky Mountains lies a town with a magical secret, Bryson City, North Carolina. While nearby Gatlinburg bustles with tourists, Bryson City offers a quieter, more mysterious allure. It serves as the gateway to the Deep Creek section of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, known for its stunning waterfalls and tubing streams. But its crown jewel is the Road to Nowhere. Intended to provide displaced families access to their old family cemeteries, the construction of the road was abandoned, leaving behind a hauntingly beautiful 6-mile stretch that ends abruptly at a tunnel. The tunnel itself, dark and dripping, is a local legend, and the unfinished road is a poignant monument to broken promises and the power of nature to reclaim what is hers. Our next stop is a place of pure enchantment, Leavenworth, Washington. Nestled in the Cascade Mountains, this town performed a miraculous transformation. In the 1960s, after its primary industry, the railroad moved away, Leavenworth was on the verge of collapse. Instead of giving up, the town made a daring decision to completely reinvent itself as a Bavarian village. Every building, from the gas station to the grocery store, was redesigned to look like it was transported from the German Alps. With its cobblestone streets, timber-framed architecture, and annual Oktoberfest celebration, Leavenworth is a stunningly convincing and wildly successful alpine fantasy that draws millions of visitors, proving that a town can literally rebuild its own destiny. High in Colorado's San Juan Mountains, you'll find a town that truly lives up to its name, Ouray. Dubbed the Switzerland of America, Ouray is surrounded on all sides by breathtaking sheer granite walls. This isn't just a pretty nickname, the geography is genuinely awe-inspiring. The town sits in a narrow valley with stunning 13,000-foot peaks towering directly above the charming historic Main Street. Ouray is also famous for its world-class ice climbing in the winter, where the frozen waterfalls that form on the canyon walls create a climber's paradise. In the summer, it's the gateway to some of Colorado's most epic four-wheel drive trails, offering access to abandoned mines and views that feel like the top of the world. For a town with a storybook setting, we journey to Woodstock, Vermont. Tucked into the rolling green mountains, Woodstock is the postcard-perfect New England village you've always imagined. What makes it unbelievable is its pristine, curated beauty and its history of preservation. It was home to Lawrence Rockefeller, who, along with his wife, worked tirelessly to protect its character. The result is a village with elegant colonial homes, a stunning central green, and a covered bridge right in the middle of town. The Ottauquechee River flows serenely through it, and the surrounding hills are dotted with farms. It's a perfectly preserved slice of American history that feels almost too good to be true. Now, let's venture to a town that feels like it's at the edge of the earth, McCarthy, Alaska. Located in the heart of Wrangell-St. Elias National Park, the largest national park in the US, McCarthy is the definition of off the grid. To get there, you must drive a 60-mile gravel road from the tiny outpost of Kitina, then park your car and walk across a footbridge over the Kennecott River. There are no public utilities. Residents generate their own power and haul their own water. The town, along with the adjacent Kennecott mines, is a ghostly relic of the early 20th century copper boom, with abandoned buildings slowly being reclaimed by the harsh Alaskan wilderness. It's a place for modern-day pioneers and adventurers. Our final destination is a place of surreal beauty and artistic spirit, Terlingua, Texas. Situated on the edge of Big Bend National Park, Terlingua is a ghost town that came back to life. Once a thriving mercury mining town, it was completely abandoned by the 1940s. In the decades since, artists, wanderers, and free spirits have slowly trickled in, rebuilding amidst the crumbling adobe ruins. The landscape is stark and Martian-like, with the vast Chihuahuan Desert stretching out in every direction. The town is famous for its annual chili cook-off and its legendary porch at the Terlingua Trading Company, where locals and travelers gather to watch the sunset over the Chisos Mountains in a spectacular display of color. It's a town built on dust, dreams, and a deep love for the desert. These 10 towns are more than just dots on a map. They are testaments to human resilience, creativity, and the powerful desire to find a place of one's own, no matter how rugged or remote. They prove that the American landscape still holds secrets and that the spirit of adventure is alive and well in the mountains. Beyond these 10, the American landscape is dotted with countless other mountain towns that possess their own unique and unbelievable character. Consider the story of Telluride, Colorado. This isn't just a beautiful ski town. It's a geographical marvel, seemingly dropped at the dead end of a box canyon, surrounded on 3 sides by sheer, towering cliffs. Its isolation was so profound that for decades the only access was a harrowing wagon road over the mountains. This seclusion bred a fiercely independent spirit and preserved its Victorian-era core. Even today, arriving in Telluride feels like discovering a hidden kingdom, with waterfalls cascading down the canyon walls directly above the historic main street. The town's history is a wild tapestry of booms and busts, from its origins as a raucous silver mining camp where Butch Cassidy robbed his first bank, to its transformation into a world-class cultural destination hosting prestigious film and music festivals. The geography that once imprisoned it is now its greatest treasure, offering some of the most dramatic and concentrated mountain scenery in the Rockies. Then there is the phenomenon of Crested Butte, Colorado, which proudly brands itself as the wildflower capital of Colorado. This isn't just a marketing slogan, it's a genuine botanical reality. The high-altitude valleys and alpine basins surrounding the town explode in a riot of color every summer, with over 50 species of wildflowers creating a breathtaking tapestry that draws botanists and photographers from around the globe. The town itself is a National Historic District, a beautifully preserved collection of colorful Victorian buildings set against the stark, dramatic peak of Crested Butte Mountain. What's truly unbelievable is the town's dedication to preserving its authentic, funky character in the face of development pressures. It's a place where world-class mountain bikers, ski bums, artists, and families coexist, united by a deep-seated love for the untamed landscape that surrounds them. The commitment to conservation here is palpable, with vast tracts of wilderness protected to ensure the wildflowers and the town's wild spirit continue to thrive for generations. Venturing into the Appalachians, we find a town with a different kind of mystery. Helvetia, West Virginia. Tucked into a remote fold of the Allegheny Mountains, this village was founded by Swiss immigrants in 1869, and it feels as though it has been preserved in a time capsule. The pace of life here is dictated by the seasons, not the stock market. With a population of just dozens, Helvetia is a living monument to Swiss tradition, where residents still observe Fasnacht, a pre-Lenten celebration involving homemade costumes, a community feast, and the burning of Old Man Winter. The community hall, the focal point of village life, hosts regular folk music and dance events. There are no traffic lights, no chain stores, and the silence at night is profound, broken only by the sounds of the forest. In an era of homogenization, Helvetia's steadfast commitment to its unique heritage and its peaceful, anachronistic way of life is both unbelievable and deeply comforting. Out west, the town of Marfa, Texas, presents a different kind of enigma. Placed high on the arid Marfa Plateau in the Trans-Pecos region, this town is an epicenter of minimalist art in the middle of a vast, empty desert. Its transformation is one of the most unlikely stories in the American West. Once a quiet ranching center, it was put on the map by the artist Donald Judd, who moved from New York in the 1970s and began installing large-scale contemporary art in former military hangars and across the landscape. The result is a surreal juxtaposition. World-class art galleries sit next to dusty feed stores, and the permanent installation of 15 concrete blocks by Judd, arranged in a desolate field, has become a pilgrimage site for art lovers. To compound the mystery, Marfa is the unofficial home of the Marfa Lights, unexplained, shimmering orbs that appear and dance on the distant horizon, a phenomenon that scientists have yet to fully explain, and that only adds to the town's otherworldly, captivating aura. The concept of a ski town is redefined in Park City, Utah, but its unbelievable nature lies not just in its world-famous powder snow, but in its layered history. Beneath the glamorous surface of the Sundance Film Festival and multi-million-dollar homes lies one of the largest historic districts in the United States, a sprawling network of trails and ruins from its past as a roaring silver mining camp. What's incredible is how these two worlds coexist. You can ride a ski lift directly from Main Street, and on your way down the mountain, you'll shuss past the crumbling foundations of old mine shafts and boarding houses. The town itself is built directly over a honeycomb of over 1,200 miles of abandoned mining tunnels. This creates a unique set of modern challenges, from subsidence to the need for specialized construction, all while preserving the charming, steeply pitched Victorian architecture that lines the streets. Park City is a place where you can attend a black-tie film premiere in the evening and explore a ghost town from the 1880s the next morning, a blend of extreme luxury and rugged history that is rarely found elsewhere. In the northern reaches of Montana, near Glacier National Park, lies the tiny town of Polbridge. This isn't so much a town as it is a defiant outpost. With no cell service, no paved streets, and no connection to the power grid, Polbridge runs on generators and solar power. The heart of the community is the legendary Polbridge Mercantile, a rustic bakery and general store, established in 1914, that produces some of the most sought-after pastries in the West. Despite its profound isolation, the town sits on the edge of the North Fork of the Flathead River, a designated wild and scenic river, and serves as the gateway to the remote, trailless backcountry of Glacier. The residents, known as North Forkers, are a hardy breed of conservationists, loners, and adventurers who embrace a life defined by brutal winters, grizzly bears, and a deep, abiding sense of community. That a place like Polbridge still exists, essentially off the modern map, is a testament to the enduring allure of the raw, untamed American wilderness. Finally, consider the story of St. Elmo, Colorado. Unlike Silver City, St. Elmo is a well-preserved ghost town, but what makes it unbelievable is that it isn't completely abandoned. A handful of hardy residents still summer in a few of the historic buildings, maintaining a fragile connection to the town's past. Established in 1880 during the Silver Boom, St. Elmo was once a thriving community of 2,000 people. Today, its dusty main street is lined with perfectly preserved false front buildings, a general store and a schoolhouse, all set against the spectacular backdrop of the Sawatch Range. The town is famously overrun by chipmunks, which have become accustomed to being fed by visitors, creating a surreal scene of bustling wildlife amidst absolute human quiet. It's also the departure point for the historic Alpine Tunnel, once the highest railroad tunnel in the world, now a haunting ruin. St. Elmo exists in a state of suspended animation, a place where you can walk down a street and feel the presence of the past so strongly, it's as if the residents have just stepped out for a moment, their stories still whispering. I've explored a lot of places across the country, towering skylines, polished coastlines, the postcard-perfect views everyone posts on Instagram, but nothing prepared me for the quiet beauty of Appalachia. Not the Appalachia you hear about in stories, not the stereotypes on TV, and definitely not the version that gets tossed around in political debates. I'm talking about the real Appalachia, an ancient world of green-tinted mountains, fog that moves like breath, towns where people still wave at strangers, and landscapes so untouched they feel older than memory itself. And today, I'm taking you there. But before we start, I want you to ask yourself something. When was the last time you saw something so beautiful, it actually changed the way you felt about the world? Because that's what happened to me in Appalachia, again and again, in places that most people will never take the time to see. It began at sunrise. Appalachia doesn't just wake up, it rises slowly, like a story being told page by page. The morning fog curls between the blue-green ridges, soft and gentle, as if the mountains are still dreaming. I drove along a winding road in the early dawn, no phone signal, just the hum of my engine and the sound of wind lifting through trees. The forests on both sides were dense and endless, oak, birch, and hickory forming a canopy that filtered the sunlight into warm, honey-colored streams. There's something humbling about driving through a place that feels both alive and untouched. It's as if the land is reminding you that no matter how fast the world moves, it still belongs to something older. The first place that stole my breath was a hollow so hidden, so quiet, it felt like a secret. Locals told me about it the night before, saying, "If you really want to see the heart of Appalachia, go where the pavement ends." So that's exactly what I did. I followed a narrow gravel path down into a valley where the world suddenly opened up. Wildflowers covered the fields in bursts of color, soft violets, golds, and whites that swayed gently in the breeze. In the distance, a weathered barn leaned into the sun, its red paint faded by decades of rain and wind. You could almost hear the echoes of generations that lived, worked, and sang in these hills. And the silence. God, the silence. Not empty, not lonely, but peaceful in a way that modern life forgets. It was the kind of silence that wraps around you and lets you breathe deeper. It was here that I realized something people rarely understand. Appalachia isn't just a place, it's a feeling, a slow rhythm, a quieter heartbeat, a reminder that beauty doesn't need to shout to be heard. As I continued deeper into the mountains, I stumbled onto places that don't appear on maps. Streams as clear as glass, waterfalls hidden behind curtains of moss, and cliffs that opened into sweeping, cinematic views without a single human structure in sight. In one spot, the rocks formed natural steps, leading down into a gorge where the light filtered through the trees like stained glass. The water pooled into crystal blue basins that shimmered with every ripple. It looked like something out of a fantasy world, untouched and unclaimed. I sat by the edge, listening to the water whisper over the stone, and I wondered how many people had passed through here before me. Maybe none, maybe countless. That's the magic of Appalachia, you never know. There's history woven into every ridge and valley here. The mountains themselves are ancient, older than the Himalayas, older than the Rockies, older even than the concept of America. When you stand on an overlook and see ridge after ridge fading into the haze, you're not just looking at geography, you're looking at time itself. These mountains have witnessed millions of years, oceans rising, continents shifting, species evolving, and they'll still be here long after we're gone. But Appalachia isn't just about landscapes, it's also about people. People who carry stories and traditions handed down like heirlooms. I met one man near a general store, a small wooden place that smelled like cedar and motor oil, who told me that his family had lived in the same valley for 7 generations. "These mountains raised us," he said with a grin. "They teach you everything you need to know about patience, work, and gratitude." And you could tell he meant it. Appalachians have a warmth that feels genuine, not forced. They don't know you, but they'll offer you directions, a meal, or a story without blinking. There's a kind of grounded hospitality here that feels like stepping back into a world where kindness wasn't rare. Then there are the towns, small, colorful, tucked between ridges like hidden keeps. Some of them look frozen in time, old brick storefronts, wooden porches, diners with neon signs flickering in the afternoon sun. But what? But the deeper you go into Appalachia, the more you realize that the region isn't just defined by its landscapes, It's defined by the quiet stories etched into those landscapes. Every bend in the mountain roads, every abandoned farmhouse, every forgotten coal town has a history people outside this region rarely hear. And some of the most extraordinary stories aren't written in books or carved into signs. They're passed down through generations, whispered on front porches, carried in the crackle of a campfire, or sung in voices shaped by the mountains themselves. Travel a little farther into the heart of the range, and you find towns that outsiders don't even know exist. Places like Bartow, Marlinton, Hinton, Grundy, Hindman, and Whitesburg. On a map, they might look like nothing more than tiny specks tucked between folds of green ridges. But in person, these towns are living museums of Appalachian culture. You'll see hand-painted storefronts, old-fashioned barber poles, churches with white wooden siding, and diners where the coffee is always hot and the accents always warm. And if you listen closely, you'll hear something else. Pride. A kind of pride that isn't loud or showy, but steady and unbreakable, built from generations who survived the hardest winters, the steepest land, and the toughest jobs America had to offer. Because in Appalachia, everything is earned, nothing comes easy, and that's exactly why everything feels so real. Follow the back roads and you'll stumble onto places that look untouched by the modern world. Old swinging bridges stretch across icy rivers. Schoolhouses from the early 1900s sit in fields like frozen moments in time. And deep in the woods, entire ghost towns still stand. Towns where coal companies once built entire communities, homes, schools, even theaters. Now, only the shells remain. Nature has begun to reclaim the bricks, the wood, the memories. But even those ruins carry a kind of beauty. The kind that reminds you that nothing man-made can last forever, but stories always do. Keep going, and you'll find some of the most mysterious spots in all of America. There are trails that lead to ancient petroglyphs carved by Native Americans centuries before the first settlers arrived. There are legends of buried treasure in the hills of Tennessee, of lost mines in Kentucky, of ghost lights floating over valleys in West Virginia. Locals will tell you these stories aren't just myths. They'll say, if you spend long enough in these mountains, you'll see things science can't explain. Some talk about hearing voices while hiking alone. Not frightening, but familiar, like echoes of the past. Others swear they've felt the mountains shift, almost like the land itself is alive. Whether you believe these stories or not, one thing is certain. Appalachia is a place where nature and mystery walk side by side. But not all the secrets here are eerie or mystical. Many are simply hidden in plain sight, like the waterfalls that only locals know how to reach, tucked behind unmarked gravel pull-offs or down steep, winding footpaths. These aren't the big, famous waterfalls you'll see on travel websites. These are the quiet ones, the sacred ones, the ones that feel like you're stepping into a world no one else has touched. You'll find falls that drop into sapphire pools so clear you can see every stone at the bottom. Falls that glow gold in the late afternoon sun. Falls where the only sound is water carving through ancient rock, a sound that has echoed here for thousands of years. And the wildlife? Appalachia has some of the richest biodiversity in America. Elk roam free in places where they vanished for centuries. Black bears wander forest edges. Endless species of birds weave songs through the treetops. In spring, the forest floor explodes with wildflowers, trillium, lady slipper orchids, flame azaleas, turning the mountains into a canvas of color. Then there's the lightning bugs. In early summer, in certain untouched pockets of the Smokies and Alleghenies, they don't just flash, they flicker in perfect unison. People travel from across the world to see this phenomenon, a natural light show that feels almost supernatural. But if you want to understand Appalachia on the deepest level, you need to spend time with the people who call it home. They're the true heart of the region. Storytellers, musicians, farmers, craftsmen, coal miners, fishermen, and families whose lineages run through these ridges like veins of gold. Sit with them on a porch and you'll learn more about these mountains in one afternoon than any book could teach. They'll tell you about the floods that swept through towns in the 70s, the coal booms and busts, the traditions they refused to let die, and the recipes passed down through generations. Food here isn't just something you eat, it's a heritage. Cornbread baked in cast-iron skillets, brown beans slow-cooked with ham hock, ramps gathered from deep forest pockets, fried apples, skillet potatoes, fried chicken the way great-grandmothers made it, and of course, the famous apple butter that simmers for hours until it's thick, dark, and sweet. And the music, that's a world in itself. Appalachian music is raw, real, and powerful. You'll hear it in community halls, roadside festivals, and front porches where fiddles, banjos, and mandolins come together in harmonies that hit you right in the chest. Many say this is the birthplace of American music. Listen closely and you'll hear echoes of Ireland, Scotland, Africa, and indigenous rhythms, all woven together into something uniquely Appalachian. But perhaps the most remarkable thing here is resilience. Appalachia has faced stereotypes, economic struggles, and hardships that outsiders rarely understand. But through everything, the people remain rooted like the mountains themselves. They adapt, reinvent, rebuild, and rise again every time. Drive through on a foggy morning, and you'll see small businesses slowly coming alive, artisans opening their shops, farmers tending their land, and families greeting each other by name. In many places, the community is so close-knit that everyone knows everyone else. And that closeness isn't a limitation. It's a strength. Because in Appalachia, community is everything. Neighbors look out for each other, strangers are treated like family, and the mountains remind you every step of the way that you're never truly alone. So when people call Appalachia unseen, they're not entirely wrong, but not in the way they think. It's unseen not because it's empty, but because it's misunderstood, because its beauty is too vast for quick snapshots, because its stories are too deep for outsiders to grasp in a weekend visit, because you can't truly know these mountains until you walk them slowly, breathe their mist, listen to their silence, and let them reveal themselves in their own time. There are wonders here that no brochure will ever show you, secrets no guidebook will list, and experiences you can't replicate anywhere else in the world. Appalachia doesn't. There's a piece of America that's technically more American than Puerto Rico, but you can't live there, you can't visit it, and the government pretends it doesn't exist. Somewhere in the Pacific, an island has a congressman representing exactly 0 voters. And right now, there are places flying the US flag where you could commit a crime and no one's entirely sure which laws would apply. Welcome to the territories they filed under too weird to explain. Most Americans learn about 50 states in school. What they don't teach you is that the United States controls 14 additional territories scattered across the Pacific and Caribbean, and the legal status of these places makes absolutely no sense. Some have millions of people who can't vote for president. Others are just coral reefs that disappear at high tide, yet somehow have federal protection and their own legal jurisdictions. And here's the kicker. This entire system started because of bird poop. Let's talk about the Guano Islands Act of 1856, because you can't understand America's territorial empire without understanding its obsession with seabird excrement. In the 1840s, guano became the hottest commodity on the planet, a prized agricultural fertilizer and source of saltpeter for gunpowder. By the early 1850s, the UK imported over 200,000 tons per year, and US imports totaled about 760,000 tons. The resulting guano mania drove prices through the roof and triggered what might be the strangest land grab law in American history. Congress passed the Guano Islands Act, which essentially said, if you find an uninhabited island covered in bird droppings, you can claim it for the United States. No joke, this law authorized US citizens to take possession of unclaimed islands containing guano deposits, empowered the president to use military force to protect these claims, and established US criminal jurisdiction over these territories. The result? America claimed over 100 islands worldwide. Most were later abandoned or given back, but about a dozen remain under US control today. And here's what nobody tells you. This act created the entire concept of insular areas, territories that could be held by the federal government without any prospect of ever becoming states. That's right. Before 1856, any territory acquired by the US was considered an integral part of the country with a clear path to statehood. But the Guano Islands Act changed everything, establishing that America could own land indefinitely without granting it the rights, protections, or representation that come with being part of the Union. Think about that next time someone says, America doesn't have colonies. So what exactly are these forgotten territories? Let's start with the minor outlying islands, 8 tiny, mostly uninhabited specks in the Pacific and Caribbean. Baker Island, Howland Island, Jarvis Island, Johnston Atoll, Kingman Reef, Palmyra Atoll, Wake Island in the Pacific, plus Navassa Island in the Caribbean. Most Americans couldn't point to any of these on a map. Hell, most maps don't even bother printing their names. But they're all technically US soil, which means they have airspace rights, maritime boundaries, and in theory, American law applies. Take Navassa Island, sitting between Haiti and Jamaica. The US grabbed it in 1857 under the Guano Act, and Haiti has been disputing that claim ever since. Haiti's constitution has explicitly named Navassa as Haitian territory since 1874, and Haitian fishermen had been using the island for centuries before America even knew it existed. But the US doesn't recognize Haiti's claim, and the island remains under American control despite having a population of exactly 0. It's administered by the US Fish and Wildlife Service, protected as a nature reserve, and completely inaccessible to the public. So here's the situation. 2 countries claim sovereignty over a rock that nobody lives on, nobody wants to visit, and that serves no purpose except as a geopolitical middle finger. Then there's Kingman Reef, which might be the most absurd territory in American history. This isn't an island. It's a mostly submerged coral atoll that disappears at high tide. There are exactly 3 acres of land above water, composed entirely of coral rubble and giant clamshells. The highest point is less than 5 feet above sea level and is wetted or awash most of the time, making it a serious maritime hazard. And yet, Kingman Reef is a US territory with federal protection, managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service, and technically subject to American criminal jurisdiction. Here's where it gets wild. You could theoretically commit a crime on Kingman Reef and be prosecuted under US federal law, assuming you could stand on the reef long enough without drowning. The atoll encloses a lagoon up to 270 feet deep and has a total area of 29 square miles within its outer rim. But only those 3 acres are above water. Population 0. Crime rate technically perfect, unless you count the sharks. And speaking of sharks, the ecosystem here is completely inverted. 85% of the fish biomass consists of apex predators. That means sharks, jacks, and other carnivores dominate the food chain in numbers never seen elsewhere. It's an aquatic thunderdome where everything wants to eat everything else. And somehow the US government said, yes, this parking lot-sized death reef is ours. But wait, there's a territory even stranger than the disappearing reef. Swains Island, part of American Samoa, has been privately owned by the Jennings family since 1856. An American whaler named Eli Hutchinson Jennings arrived with his Samoan wife, Malia, allegedly purchased the island for 15 shillings per acre and a bottle of gin from an English captain, and his descendants have controlled it ever since. The US formally annexed Swains Island in 1925, but the Jennings family retained ownership. And here's the beautiful absurdity. Swains Island has a seat in the American Samoan legislature, a representative, a delegate with voting power, for an island with 0 permanent residents since 2008. Let me repeat that. An island with no people has more representation in government than Washington, D.C., which has 700,000 residents. Swains Island gets a legislative voice. Puerto Rico's 3.2 million US citizens don't get a voting member of Congress. Make that make sense. Speaking of legal paradoxes, let's talk about Palmyra Atoll, the only US territory that's both incorporated and unorganized. Incorporated means it's officially part of the United States proper, with full constitutional protections. Unorganized means it has no local government, no legislature, and no permanent residents. Palmyra is technically more American than Puerto Rico from a legal standpoint. If you're born on Palmyra, you're unequivocally a US citizen with full constitutional rights. If you're born in Puerto Rico, you're a citizen but the Constitution doesn't fully apply, and you can't vote for president. Palmyra was part of the Kingdom of Hawaii, annexed by the US, along with Hawaii in 1898. When Hawaii became a state in 1959, Congress explicitly excluded Palmyra from the new state. Why? The official reason was that it was uninhabited and distant, so it would be difficult to administer. The unofficial reason might have involved property ownership disputes, potential challenges to US sovereignty claims, and the fact that the island's private owners had successfully prevented the Navy from condemning the island during World War II. Today, Palmyra is co-managed by the US Fish and Wildlife Service and the Nature Conservancy, with a rotating population of 4 to 20 researchers and staff. And it has a dark history. In 1974, a wealthy sailing couple named Mac and Muff Graham disappeared while staying on Palmyra. Years later, in 1981, a visitor stumbled upon human remains and a metal box containing bones. Forensic analysis revealed that Muff Graham had been bludgeoned to death, her body dismembered and burned with an acetylene torch before being stuffed into the aluminum container and dumped in a lagoon. 2 drifters who had been on the island at the same time, Buck Walker and Jennifer Jenkins, were eventually tried for the murder. Walker was convicted. Jenkins was acquitted with the help of Vincent Bugliosi, the prosecutor who put away Charles Manson. McGraham's body was never found. So yeah, Palmyra is paradise, if your definition of paradise includes unsolved murders and decomposing evidence washing ashore. Then we've got Johnston Atoll, America's toxic wasteland with a wildlife refuge PR campaign. From the 1960s through 2000, Johnston was where the US military stored and incinerated chemical weapons. We're talking nerve agents, sarin, VX, sulfur mustard, plus Agent Orange defoliant from Vietnam. The island also hosted nuclear tests in 1962, at least one of which failed catastrophically and scattered plutonium contamination across the atoll and into the surrounding waters. US troops were sent in for a rapid cleanup, scrubbing down launch pads and carting away debris. The plutonium-contaminated rubbish dumped in the lagoon. By 2000, the Johnston Atoll Chemical Agent Disposal System had successfully destroyed 412,798 chemical weapons, about 6% of the entire US stockpile. The military declared the island decontaminated and handed it over to the Fish and Wildlife Service as a nature reserve. But decontaminated is doing some heavy lifting here. There are still warnings about unexploded munitions. The soil has been tested, the top layers removed, but plutonium has a half-life of 24,000 years, and nobody's in a rush to move there. Population 0, except for a small army of coconut crabs that may or may not glow in the dark. Job market closed unless you're a hermit crab with security clearance. Wake Island is another category of strange, a military outpost frozen in World War II. It's home to about 100 rotating military personnel and contractors, with no permanent residents and no local government. Wake was bombed on the same day as Pearl Harbor, and the Battle of Wake Island became a legendary moment of American resistance during the war. Today, it's mostly a runway, some bunkers, rusting communication towers, and a radar installation that definitely isn't watching satellites. The US Air Force administers it, and new construction is planned for 2027, demolishing old facilities and building consolidated support structures, new living quarters, and an expanded aircraft parking apron. Wake is also disputed by the Marshall Islands, which claims historical sovereignty. But since Wake has no voting rights, no constitutionally guaranteed protections, and no way to challenge its status, it remains in legal limbo. Now let's talk about the territories people actually live in. Puerto Rico is the big one, 3.2 million US citizens living in what can only be described as a constitutional contradiction. Puerto Ricans are citizens, they carry US passports, they can be drafted into the military, and they pay federal payroll taxes. But they can't vote for president, they have no voting representation in Congress, and the Constitution doesn't fully apply to them thanks to a series of early 1900s Supreme Court cases called the Insular Cases, which were based on explicitly racist rationales about whether uncivilized populations could handle full constitutional rights. Puerto Rico has held 7 referendums on its political status. The most recent one, in November 2024, saw 56% of voters choose statehood. 620,782 votes. That's more support than any candidate for governor received. And Congress? Crickets. No action, no binding vote, just another non-binding referendum added to the pile. Meanwhile, 59% of Americans support Puerto Rico statehood, but that doesn't seem to move the needle either. Here's the twist. Puerto Rico has become a tax haven for wealthy Americans through Act 60. If you become a bona fide resident of Puerto Rico, you can enjoy a 4% corporate income tax rate, 0% tax on capital gains, and 100% tax exemption on dividends. These incentives are valid until 2035. So if you're rich, Puerto Rico rolls out the red carpet. If you're a local resident, you're stuck with a median income of $22,000 per year, less than half the US mainland average, high electricity costs, unreliable infrastructure, and a government that treats you like a second-class citizen. Then there's the Northern Mariana Islands, population 47,000, which spent decades as a corporate loophole disguised as a US territory. From the mid-1980s through the early 2000s, Saipan became ground zero for labor exploitation. Garment factories imported workers, mostly women from China and the Philippines, paid them below minimum wage, housed them in overcrowded barracks, and worked them 14-hour days. The products, stamped made in USA because the Northern Marianas technically counts as US territory. Companies got to slap patriotic labels on goods produced under sweatshop conditions, bypassing US labor laws entirely. The scandal eventually led to reforms. Federal minimum wage was finally enforced, the factories shut down, and new regulations came in. But the economic damage was done. Today, the islands survive on tourism, mostly from Korea, China, and Japan. But the cost of living remains high due to expensive electricity and imported goods. And here's a fun fact. US citizens can live and work there visa-free. But you can't buy land unless you have Northern Marianas descent. You can only lease. Finally, we have the freely associated states, Micronesia, the Marshall Islands, and Palau. These are technically independent countries, not US territories. But the compacts of free association give the US full control over their defense, foreign policy, and access to their land, water, and airspace for military purposes. In exchange, the US provides financial assistance, and citizens of these nations can freely travel, live, work, and study in the United States without visas. The compacts were renewed in 2023 and run through 2043. Combined population, just over 200,000. Most young people leave for Guam, Hawaii, or the mainland because there are no jobs. Healthcare requires flights, internet is slow, electricity is inconsistent. And yet, these countries host US military installations and radar systems that are critical to Pacific defense strategy. More people from these nations now live in the US than in their home countries. America gets the land, the strategic positioning, and the talent. The islands get financial aid and the polite fiction of sovereignty. So here's the reality. The United States controls 14 territories with nearly 4 million residents, most of whom are US citizens. They live under American law, pay federal taxes, serve in the military, and carry US passports. But they can't vote for president. They have no voting representation in Congress. They can be denied federal benefits with minimal justification, and the Constitution doesn't fully protect them. Some of these territories are uninhabited rocks claimed for bird poop. Others are toxic wastelands declared nature reserves. One is a family-owned plantation with a legislative seat and no voters. And one is legally more American than the place where 3 million citizens actually live. These are the territories they pretend don't exist. The legal loopholes, the constitutional gray zones, the places that reveal what the United States really is when you strip away the mythology of equality and representation. You want freedom. Have you ever stumbled upon a place so breathtaking it feels like you've discovered America's best-kept secret? Tucked away in forgotten corners of the American landscape, there are mountain towns so underrated they might as well be invisible. Places where Victorian mansions cling to canyon walls, ghost towns breathe with new life, and entire villages look like they've been airlifted from the Swiss Alps. These aren't your overcrowded Aspens or your tourist trap Gatlinburgs. These are the places locals whisper about, where authenticity hasn't been paved over, and where you can still feel like an explorer instead of just another visitor. From Idaho's Silver Valley to the Chihuahuan Desert, we're about to reveal 10 mountain towns so incredible, you'll wonder how they stayed hidden this long. Number 10. Wallace, Idaho, the last stand of wild America. Deep in the Bitterroot Mountains of Idaho's Panhandle sits a town that looks like it peaked in 1910 and simply decided to stay there. Wallace is a pocket of frozen history with fewer than 800 residents, where the entire downtown is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This isn't some reconstructed theme park version of the Old West. This is the real deal. The town earned its stripes in the silver mining boom of the 1880s, when prospectors flooded the Silver Valley searching for fortune. What makes Wallace extraordinary is that it survived not just the boom and bust cycles of mining, but also one of the largest fires in North American history. The buildings you see today are authentic remnants, with ornate brick facades that have somehow escaped the wrecking ball of modernization. But Wallace isn't living in the past. The route of the Hiawatha, one of America's most spectacular rail-to-trail conversions, passes right through town. This 15-mile bike trail takes you through 10 tunnels and across 7 sky-high trestles, offering views that'll make your Instagram followers think you've discovered Narnia. Number 9. Cloudcroft, New Mexico, where desert meets alpine magic. At nearly 9,000 feet above sea level, Cloudcroft sits like a misplaced piece of Colorado in the heart of southern New Mexico. The name itself means a clearing in the clouds, and when you're standing in this alpine village surrounded by ponderosa pines, you'll swear you've been transported to a completely different state. This is where things get weird for New Mexico. While the rest of the state bakes under desert sun, Cloudcroft enjoys 4 distinct seasons, including significant snowfall that transforms the area into a legitimate winter sports destination. Ski Cloudcroft might be compact, but it offers something extraordinary: skiing in southern New Mexico, where most people assume mountains don't even exist. Founded in 1899 as a lumber town and mountain resort, Cloudcroft was built along the Alamogordo and Sacramento Mountain Railway. The lodge at Cloudcroft, rebuilt in 1911, still stands as a centerpiece of old-timey elegance, complete with rumors of a resident ghost named Rebecca. The surrounding Lincoln National Forest offers over 480,000 acres of exploration. The Mexican Canyon Trestle, a restored railroad bridge from 1899, provides panoramic views of the Tularosa Basin that stretch for miles. And here's the kicker: most Americans have never even heard of this place. Number 8. Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, the Switzerland of America. You didn't know existed? Forget Colorado. Pennsylvania has its own Switzerland of America, and it's arguably more charming than any mountain town out west. Jim Thorpe sits in the Pocono Mountains along the Lehigh River, where Victorian architecture cascades down steep hillsides in a display of 19th-century opulence that rivals anything you'd find in Europe. Originally called Mauk Chunk, meaning bare place in the Lenape language, it was founded in 1818 as the terminus of America's second railroad, built to haul anthracite coal. The town grew wealthy from the coal trade, and the mansions that line its streets stand as monuments to that era of industrial prosperity. Then came 1954, when the town made one of the strangest deals in American history. Struggling economically after the coal industry declined, the boroughs merged and renamed themselves Jim Thorpe in honor of the Olympic athlete. Number 7. Stanley, Idaho, where wilderness still wins. With a population that hovers around 150 people, Stanley feels less like a town and more like a staging area for your next epic adventure. Planted at the foot of the jagged Sawtooth Mountains, on the banks of the Salmon River, Stanley represents one of the last strongholds of the true American frontier. The landscape here doesn't mess around. The Sawtooth Range earned its name from peaks so sharp they look like they could cut the sky. Thompson Peak, the highest at 10,751 feet, anchors a wilderness that contains over 50 peaks above 10,000 feet and hundreds of alpine lakes. This is the Idaho you dream about, but weren't sure still existed. Stanley sits within the 756,000-acre Sawtooth National Recreation Area, where three national forest scenic byways converge. Redfish Lake, just south of Stanley, offers crystal-clear waters backed by cathedral-like mountain walls that'll make you question if you're still in the lower 48. But here's what makes Stanley truly special. It has protected its darkness. The town sits within the Central Idaho Dark Sky Reserve, meaning the Milky Way doesn't just appear on clear nights, it dominates the entire sky with a brilliance most Americans have never witnessed. On a moonless night, you can see so many stars it becomes disorienting. The town itself is wonderfully funky and unpretentious, with local eateries, a fascinating museum, and a community that knows everyone by name. Stanley remains gloriously real, a mountain town where nature still calls the shots. Number 6. Ouray, Colorado, the other Switzerland nobody talks about. Ouray earned the nickname Switzerland of America decades before it became trendy, and one look at this mountain jewel explains why. Cradled in a natural amphitheater at 7,792 feet elevation, Ouray is surrounded by 13,000-foot peaks that rise so dramatically you feel like you're standing at the bottom of the world. Founded by miners chasing silver and gold in the 1870s, Ouray once had over 30 active mines. When the mining era ended, Ouray could have become another forgotten ghost town. Instead, its Victorian architecture and natural hot springs attracted a different kind of prospector, the one seeking beauty and adventure. Today, Ouray thrives as an outdoor paradise that somehow escaped the overcrowding plaguing other Colorado mountain towns. Box Canyon Falls, a 285-foot waterfall that thunders through a narrow gorge right at the edge of town, offers one of the most dramatic short walks you'll ever take. Number 5. Leavenworth, Washington, the Bavarian village that shouldn't exist. Here's something completely bonkers. Deep in Washington's Cascade Mountains, there's a town that looks like it was airlifted straight from the German Alps. Leavenworth didn't start as a Bavarian village. It became one in a desperate bid for survival, and the transformation might be the most successful small-town reinvention in American history. In the early 1960s, Leavenworth was dying. The railroad had rerouted, the lumber mill had closed, and the place was one bad winter from becoming a ghost town. Then community leaders had a wild idea. If the surrounding mountains looked like Bavaria, why not complete the experience by transforming the entire town into a Bavarian village? Every building in downtown received a complete architectural makeover, with Tudor-style facades, flower boxes, and murals that would make a German Burgermeister weep with joy. The community created festivals, Oktoberfest, Mayfest, and the famous Christmas Lighting Festival, that drew visitors by the thousands. Today, over 3 million people visit Leavenworth annually. The town square fills with musicians almost nightly. Authentic German restaurants serve schnitzel and bratwurst. Specialty shops sell everything from cuckoo clocks to lederhosen. But Leavenworth isn't just a pretty facade. The surrounding Cascade Mountains offer world-class hiking, rock climbing, whitewater rafting on the Wenatchee River, and skiing at nearby resorts. The scenery is legitimately spectacular. This part of Washington could pass for Switzerland even without the Bavarian buildings. Number 4. Silverton, Colorado, the high-altitude time capsule. At 9,318 feet, Silverton might be Colorado's highest town, but it's also one of its most perfectly preserved. The entire downtown is a National Historic Landmark District, where Victorian buildings from the mining boom stand exactly as they did over a century ago. With just 600 year-round residents, Silverton feels less like a town and more like a stage set for the American West. Except everything here is gloriously real. Founded in an ancient volcanic caldera in the heart of the San Juan Mountains, Silverton boomed when prospectors discovered the hills were rich with gold and silver. What saved Silverton was the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad, a coal-fired steam train that's been making the spectacular 50-mile journey from Durango since 1882. The mountains surrounding Silverton are some of Colorado's most dramatic. 14,000-foot peaks rise in every direction, accessible by the Million-Dollar Highway, a section of road so stunning and terrifying that it's become a bucket list drive. Number 3. Bisbee, Arizona, the mining town that became an art colony. Built on steep canyon slopes in the Mule Mountains of southeast Arizona, Bisbee shouldn't exist. But for nearly a century, miners blasted 8 billion pounds of copper, along with massive amounts of gold and silver from the mountains, creating one of the richest mineral deposits in American history. When mining began in 1877, Bisbee exploded into a boom town that rivaled the more famous Tombstone. By the early 1900s, over 30 active mines kept the town thriving, and miners carved homes into the hillsides in a warren of staircases and narrow streets that gave Bisbee an almost European feel. Then the copper ran out. But something unusual happened. Artists, hippies, and counterculture types discovered the town's cheap Victorian homes and quirky character. They moved in, preserved the historic buildings, and transformed Bisbee into one of the Southwest's most vibrant art colonies. Number 2. Bryson City, North Carolina. The Smokies without the crowds. While millions of tourists clog Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge on the Tennessee side of Great Smoky Mountains National Park, Bryson City sits quietly on the North Carolina side, offering everything the Smokies promise with a fraction of the chaos. With just 1,500 residents, Bryson City serves as the gateway to the Deep Creek section of the park. The North Carolina side of the Smokies feels wilder, less developed, and infinitely more peaceful than its Tennessee counterpart. The town itself charms visitors with a walkable downtown perched along the Tuckasegee River. The Great Smoky Mountains Railroad offers scenic excursions through mountain valleys that look unchanged in 100 years. Deep Creek offers swimming, tubing, and access to 3 spectacular waterfalls. The Nantahala Gorge provides world-class whitewater rafting. The Tsali Recreation Area features some of the finest mountain biking in the country, with over 40 miles of single track. Fontana Lake, the largest lake in western North Carolina, offers kayaking and fishing with mountain views that rival anything in the West. Because Bryson City attracts outdoor enthusiasts rather than souvenir hunters, it maintains an authentic character lost in more touristy mountain towns. Number 1. Terlingua, Texas, where the desert touches the sky. Welcome to America's most improbable mountain town. Terlingua sits in the Chihuahuan Desert at the edge of Big Bend National Park, where the Chisos Mountains rise dramatically from dusty plains. With a population of roughly 50 full-time residents, Terlingua technically qualifies as a ghost town. Except ghosts don't serve this good of barbecue. Terlingua boomed in the early 1900s when miners discovered cinnabar, the ore from which mercury is extracted. By the 1930s, 2,000 people called Terlingua home. When the mercury market crashed, everyone left, and Terlingua became a legitimate ghost town with crumbling stone buildings and a cemetery that tells stories of harsh frontier life. But then something magical happened. Artists, wanderers, and people seeking to escape conventional life discovered Terlingua's haunting beauty. Today, the ghost town has been gently revitalized with rustic lodgings, the famous Starlight Theatre restaurant, and the Terlingua Trading Company, all housed in restored historic buildings that maintain the ghost town aesthetic. What makes Terlingua extraordinary is its location. Big Bend National Park surrounds the area with landscapes so alien they've stood in for Mars in movies. The Chisos Mountains offer hiking through desert peaks. The Rio Grande cuts through dramatic canyons where you can kayak between the United States and Mexico. And the night sky offers stargazing so spectacular that astronomy enthusiasts travel from around the world. The Terlingua Cemetery sits on a hill overlooking the desert and mountains in a panorama of such stark beauty it takes your breath away. Every November, the town hosts the Terlingua International Chili Cook-Off, drawing thousands to this remote corner of Texas for a festival that's become legendary. Terlingua proves that mountain towns don't need ski resorts or polish to be unforgettable. Sometimes all you need is raw beauty, genuine character, and the courage to be different. These 10 mountain towns represent America's best-kept secrets, places where authentic experiences haven't been packaged and sanitized for mass consumption. From Idaho's Silver Valley to the Texas desert, they prove that the most memorable destinations are often the ones nobody's heard of. So next time you're planning a mountain escape, skip the crowds and seek out these hidden gems where you can still feel like an explorer discovering something special.